and these are my frequencies. First thing I would normally do is add up my frequencies, but I don't necessarily need that to draw my frequency histogram. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 scores. So I'm going to need to start off with my coming across. I'll come down as far as I can on my page, and I'm going to come across 8 centimetres plus 1 extra centimetre in my score to allow me, on my bottom axis, to allow me some space to go across. Coming across every centimetre, and I make a mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and my scores should go on. 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69 and 70. I don't know what these are, so I'm just going to write them as a score for now. Okay, coming up, the highest I need to come up is 8 in my frequency, and I probably can just go up 8 each one is a centimetre, but I need to go an extra centimetre just to allow my graph or my histogram scales on my axes to be long enough to have my axes on either end. So coming up each centimetre, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll come up one more just to 9. And remember, your vertical axis when you're drawing a histogram should always be your frequency and your score going across, just like X does on a number plane. I don't need to put an extra score in. It is useful just to put the extra mark there, but I don't write 71 because it doesn't exist. The frequency of 9 will exist in counting, but 71 doesn't exist in my scores, but I do need to put the mark there. It will help when I'm drawing the polygon later on. Okay, I've now got... Okay, now let's have a look at the scores. Well, up here I've got 3 for 63. So coming down, here's my 63. Remember, my columns have to go halfway on. Okay, so let's have a look at the scores. So the first one is 63. Remember, my columns have got to go halfway before and halfway after the 63. So up here 63 has 3, so I'm going to come along this line up to 3, make a little mark, and then draw the inside of the first column for the histogram for 63. Then I've got to follow it along and draw the other side halfway past the 63 on this side and across the top. Now I go to the 64. There's 4 for the 64, so if I follow this up to the 4, make a little mark. I've already got part of this line already drawn, so I just need to extend it up to the top and then come halfway on the other side of 64 and draw it up to 4 and across the top. And make sure you're using your ruler, because it's just because we're using across the top doesn't mean we don't have to use our ruler as well. Okay, 65 has 6 scores, so again I already have part of this line drawn. Coming up along that line, it's 6, so I'm just going to make a little dot there so I know how far to go up this line. Okay, extending it up, and then on the other side of 65, coming up 6 as well, and then across the top with the ruler. The next one is 66, and there's 8 of those. So coming up, I've already got part of this line drawn, just coming up to 8. I'll just need to extend it up to 8 and draw it all the way on the other side up to 8 as well. And across the top. Okay, continuing on in the same pattern to 67, except 67 only comes up to 7, so my line's already drawn on this side. I've just got to draw the other on the other half, so halfway past 67, draw the other line. Oh goodness, I've just drawn that too far, and straight across the top. Okay, 68. I did put a mark there too, didn't I? 68 is 4, so coming up to 4, and then I've already drawn that whole side, so just coming across to the other side. Just put my little mark there to help me, and come down and across the top. Okay, 69 is 3. Again, I've already drawn it, so just put my little mark there, and on this side up to 3, my little mark there to help me. And across the top. And my last one is 70, which is at 1, so I'll just put my little mark here and across the top. Now I'm going to overlay, laying over the top, a frequency polygon. A polygon is the line graph that we draw, and we can draw it irrespective to already having the frequency histogram there as well. So when we are drawing the polygon, if we already have the columns, it of course has to go directly in the middle and above the score. So above 63, it just happens to be on the top of the columns, and it ends up being in the middle of the columns, and it should be because the score should be in the middle of the columns. So I'm going to go ahead and put those. I already know where they are because the tops of the columns are indicating the correct frequency. But if they didn't, and I didn't have the column here and I wasn't overlaying it on top of the histogram, I would simply be just saying, again, 63 has 3, coming up in line with 63 and joining it up at 3, making a dot at 3, sorry. Now the polygon, all we are doing is just joining up the line graph, but we have to put a little point down here at the beginning. We started down at 0, frequency meaning how many. There was none at the beginning, and the reason why we needed this score here at the end is because we're going to put a little mark there, 1 centimetre in front and 1 centimetre behind each score, just so we can show it goes back down to 0. We just join the dots up to our frequency polygon. It's just a line graph, and you need to use your ruler, even though sometimes in class I will draw it as a curve so we can see that symmetrical bell curve. When you're drawing a polygon, it must be done using a ruler. Okay, now we're going to have a look at the scores. So 63 down the bottom here, remember the score needs to be in the centre of our column. So we need to come on the inside halfway and halfway on the outside of 63. Now 63 has a score of 3, so if we just sat on this inside line and come up to 3, make a little dot where we've got to go, and if we rule along that grid line up to 3 on the inside. Now if we have to come to the other side of 63,